Hey, welcome to our Shabbat Shorts, where we talk about the Torah portion, but we talk about it just with a little bit of a more focused manner, one particular topic. So we're going to talk about the 10 tests of Abraham, the 10 tests that God put Abraham through to really qualify him as the father of our faith. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through these quick, but the first one we find in Genesis chapter 12. Beginning in verse 1, it says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you." So we see here the first of the 10 tests, and we're going to go through these 10 tests. But the very first one that he gives to Abram, he asks him to leave his country. All right. So if you want to hear more about that, go through our longer teaching of this particular Torah portion, and you can see what the context of that is, the reason why he asked him to leave his country. But I want you to think about that. The first thing he had to do was he had to trust the Lord with the unknown. He knew everything about where he was and the place that he was and all of the people that he was around, all of the people in that situation. And the Lord told him to go to a land he didn't know, to go do something that was outside of his comfort zone. So again, as we think about these, I want you to apply them to yourself. Is your faith strong enough? Are you willing to step outside of your comfort zone and go somewhere or do something or leave something that may be familiar? Then the second test that he gives him is he asks him to to go to a land, the land that he's promised him, the land that he takes him to, actually goes into a famine. So he goes from a land where he's taken care of and he's well established into a place where now he has a famine. And maybe it's been like that for you sometimes, where God tells you to do something and the results don't pan out right away. Do we still have the faith to continue in that place that he's called us? The third test is the test of wealth. He was promised wealth in multiple places. From Abimelech tried to give him wealth. The Pharaoh tried to give him wealth. All kinds of different tests were given to him. It's one thing to be tested with famine. It's another thing to be tested with wealth. Will we be faithful? Notice what Abram says to this test when Abimelech asks him, or the king of Sodom says, "I have sworn to the Lord God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, for fear that you would say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing except for what the young men have eaten and the share of the men who went with me." So it's interesting that when he's tested with wealth, he doesn't even look out for himself, but he does make sure that the people that were with him are taken care of. Pretty interesting. So he could be trusted with that. Can we be trusted? Pharaoh also takes Sarah from him. In Genesis 12 and verse 15. Also, Abimelech, king of Sodom, takes Sarah from him. So twice he has his wife taken from him, and he trusts the Lord to give her back or to work something out in a situation where everything's going to turn out okay. Again, when we get tested with difficult things like this, maybe the loss of a loved one, or a loved one of ours is going through a very difficult situation, someone that's very, very close to us, do we trust the Lord to help us navigate through that problem, or do we stress out and try to solve things in our own strength? Pretty interesting there. But his faith was tested and he passed the test. Then God tests him with circumcision in Genesis 17. Genesis 17, he is given the covenant of circumcision. All the males in his house have to be circumcised. Maybe there's a physical thing that God has called you to, a fast or something difficult. But when he asks us to do something difficult, are we willing to allow our faith to be bigger than all of the question marks we have behind it? Then we have the test number 7 and test number 8, where he's giving up Ishmael and he's giving up Hagar. Remember that he had to give up some things that were not the promise. Okay, these were not his promise. Isaac was his promise. And so he tried to solve the promise or make the promise happen in his own strength, and he was asked to give those things up. What about you? What about me? If we're asked to give something up that we created instead of letting the Lord work out that promise? Are we willing to let go of that no matter how painful it is? Then we get to number 9, which I know all of you are very familiar with, and that is giving up of Isaac. He was willing in Genesis 22 and verse 2, he was willing to trust God in something that seemed completely outrageous. When you read it in Hebrews chapter 11, you understand that he actually believed that God was either, number one, not going to make him do it, or that God was going to immediately raise Isaac back from the dead. So that's why he had that much faith in the Lord that he was willing to put his own son on the line and trust the Lord with the life of his son. Then finally, the death of Sarah, his wife, in Genesis 23. Very difficult situation. You can go read about it, but he still trusted the Lord. He didn't allow, he didn't blame the Lord. He didn't say, why didn't you save her? He didn't go into a woe is me type of situation. And as a matter of fact, towards the end of his life, he was blessed with even more family, which was pretty remarkable. So what about you and I, right? In James chapter 1, it says, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, know that the testing of endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So today, as we think about these things, as we have trials, as we have different things that we go through testing, remember that the Lord is able to take that test and make it work in your favor. The Lord is able to take that test and he's able to make it work so that your faith, just like Abraham's, can be more precious than gold. It can be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That is the goal. Will we ever get there? Probably not in our lifetimes until Yeshua, our Messiah, returns. But in the meantime, let us push towards that, as Paul says, and make that our goal. God bless you and have a wonderful rest of your day.